Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to my live show here on Facebook with me, William Wallace, my show, William Wallace for America. I'm bringing on a really interesting guest tonight that I've been really excited about since I met him in Indianapolis at the NRA convention. His name is Brian Stern, and his organization is called Project Dynamo. And if you haven't heard about it, I can guarantee you that you're going to be not only intrigued to find out more, and you're going to probably be motivated to want to support them or help them in some way or another, but you're going to share these stories like you've never shared a story before. Brian, thank you so much for coming on tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, William. I appreciate being here.
Well, it's interesting because I think when people look at you, they're going to try to match up the stories that you're going to tell, and and they might want to picture you in camo or or something like that, right?
I don't wear a lot of camouflage anymore, which is nice. Depending on where I'm working, I'm in when I'm in the occupied territories of Ukraine, I'm in head to toe Adidas. I look like Euro trash with a man purse and a beanie. It's a little bit different.
So you've been in Ukraine rescuing people too.
Yeah, Project Dynamo, we're a non-for-profit. We're a 501c3 tax-deductible non-for-profit. We're a donor-funded, veteran-led international rescue organization. We operate where the government isn't. So either because they left, like Afghanistan, or until they get there, like Hurricane Ian in Florida, we were the first ones in the water. We actually beat the Coast Guard. Or if they're never going to come at all, like places like Ukraine, or if they're going to come and go, like we just saw in Sudan, where I just came back from, or even places like inside Russia, where, yes, we have an embassy, but the diplomatic relationship is so poor, we may as well not have an embassy. And our core function is to rescue Americans, American citizens, and U.S. persons from these locations that are either austere or conflict zones or war zones or what have you, up to and including breaking people out of jail, which we've done on a number of occasions. So we're pretty prolific in the space. Our focus is always Americans. We're an American first kind of an organization, but the reality is I've rescued over 6,000 people from 20 different countries, 20 different nationalities, from a bunch of different places. So we're happy to help wherever we can.
This is sounding like a James Bond movie. It sounds something like you read in a book. It sounds like like a novel of some sort. So I want to go backwards a bunch of years to tell the story about what your background was in before you actually started Project Dynamo. And then I want to talk about the idea that got you there. So what was your background in before Project Dynamo?
I worked for the government for a lot of years. I was in the military for a long time. I've been doing this sort of thing for about 25 years since I'm a kid. I started in late 97, early 98. And never really stopped, to be honest. I had gotten out. I left government full time and started a small consultancy in Tampa, doing the same kind of thing for the rich and shameless, helping people with their problems, getting them into different places. A lot of international business development based on networks that I had access to, and always kept my fingers kind of in the pie with the government, our government, but even advised other foreign governments, which turned out to be very helpful for Dynamo. Dynamo was started in my living room in Tampa, August 2021, during the failed evacuation and withdrawal of Afghanistan. When I started Dynamo, little known fact, I was a 9/11 first responder. I was in both collapses. I had an office. My office was right across the street from the World Trade Center. And
what agency did you work for then?
I was in the Army. I was in the Army station in New York.
Okay.
So, and I've worked all over the place. I've worked for all kinds of cool units, and I've worked with the most elite units in the U.S. Arsenal. I've worked for units and organizations that don't even have names; we just have numbers. So I've had a really blessed career. I've worked in over 60 countries all over the world: Europe, Africa, Latin America, all over the place. So I'm not a very religious man. I'm spiritual, but I wouldn't call myself religious. But I truly believe that my 25 years on Earth, the last 25 years, and my career really set me up for exactly where I'm supposed to be, exactly when I'm supposed to be there, which is doing this. Um, uh, and I can kind of get into some of our stats. Our statistics are honestly unbelievable. As a guy who used to do this for the government, um, it's kind of amazing when I look back over the last 2 years and look at what we've accomplished that honestly the government probably couldn't do due to bureaucracy or risk aversion or politics or what have you that we kind of do with gusto. And I'll give you a good example, right? We just landed. I just came back from Sudan, right? U.S. Embassy evacuated. Special Operations Command launches a force. They launch like 90 guys and pull out 101 people out of the embassy staff, right? Embassy is closed. Thousands and thousands and thousands of Americans are stuck in the middle of a very brutal civil war where people are getting butchered in the streets in Sudan. These are Americans.
You saw that when you were there?
I mean, it's Sudan, so it's kind of, bringing sand to the beach. Sudan is not known for its lollipops and rainbows. It's known for genocide over decades, right? So not surprising that there's war in Sudan. That's not exactly news, but if you're an American and the embassy leaves, you're stuck in the middle of a war. So the U.S. military comes in bravely. Brave men and women come in on helicopters, evacuate the embassy, and now you got thousands of Americans stuck. And that's okay. That's not a problem yet. The problem comes into where 29 other nations send airplanes to go evacuate their people. Guatemala sent a C-130 to take 17 Guatemalans out of Khartoum. Who knew there were Guatemalans in Sudan, but there were 17 of them, right? The British were landing airplanes, the Moroccans, the Egyptians, the Swedish, the Germans, everyone. How many airplanes did the United States government send to rescue Americans? 0.
So Guatemala sent a C-130 over there to rescue 17 people, but America couldn't send anybody over to rescue the remaining 1,000, you said?
Let's be clear. Couldn't is a strong word. They could. They choose not to for whatever the reasons are, and we have some insight as to what those reasons are. But the reality is the only airplane to fly into Sudan and take Americans out is my airplane. So
you have an airplane.
We charter. We chartered an aircraft. We did a wet lease for an aircraft and flew a Boeing 737 straight into Sudan, applied for landing clearance like everybody else does, and landed an airplane, drove buses from Khartoum to Port Sudan, landed an airplane in Port Sudan, got them on the plane, flew them out, 86 Americans to Egypt to go, just like McDonald's. So the question is,
you make it sound so easy, though.
Well, the question is that, and this is, and we're donor funded, right? So that cost $417,000, that operation. So it's expensive, right? Because insurance into a war zone where there's a NOTAM, meaning nothing can fly, things get a little complicated. People don't want to lose their airplane, so the insurance is expensive. And the buses are expensive. The gas right now in Sudan on the ground is $139 a gallon. And we had to drive 13 hours times 86 people. You start adding that up, that number.
Who coordinates all this mission? I mean, you're one person doing this, and and not the military. I mean, like the military, that's tax dollars. I mean, they just print the money, right? But you're getting donated money, which, by the way, I got your donation site, down, at the bottom if anybody wants to donate any money. But how do you coordinate this? Like who coordinates the buses? Where do you get the buses from?
So, and this is why Dynamo is so successful, and why a lot of groups are. There's a lot of groups that are veteran rescue groups, but if you really peel back the onion a little bit, we're very different because we actually go forward. I just landed from Egypt just a couple of days ago, so we go forward. We're on the streets, we're on the ground, we do this stuff ourselves. So, every safe house that we manage, I've personally used the plumbing in. So it's different. I don't know a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy who's got a house. That's not a safe house. A safe house is a true safe house is a place that's safe and secure for operational security purposes to conduct operations with operational necessity right out of the field manual. Right. So we're how do we do it? We get on the street, We get after it. We use positive and negative stimulation and all kinds of other tricks and ruses and all kinds of things. But bottom line is, I'm not a one-man army. I have a team. We have a group of people. I have a group of volunteers in the rear, and I have a group of folks that come forward with me on the ground. But my ground team is 3 people. Not even by Army standards, not even a fire team.
This is 3 people.
3 men. Yes, sir. So
now they're obviously paid because you have some volunteers that do too.
We have both. Most of our folks are all volunteers. We have a few paid staff, but we keep it very light. We keep it very, 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 very light. All the money really, really needs to go into setting these things up because they're expensive, number one. And number two, when Sudan started, the embassy on the day that the embassy left, there were 16,000 Americans stuck in Sudan. It's a catastrophe, calamity. It's an embarrassment. Go to foxnews.com right now and look for the word Sudan. You won't find it.
So, we know Fox News isn't always our friend anymore.
Or CNN or Newsmax or MSNBC. Mainstream media isn't even covering this thing. So,
well, I'm going to say, I'm going to ask the question, but for a listener might ask, how do we know this is true? How do we know that you're really going over there and rescuing these people?
Simple. Go to my social media. We have LinkedIn, Facebook. I have somebody who does all that for me. I'm not a social media guy. What's the other one? Instagram, right? Instagram. One of the great things about Dynamo is, compared to my previous life, is that nothing is classified. So I record and document everything. And I can show, I have literally, in May of last year, a year and a couple of days ago, the Russians sent a hitman to kill me, right? And we got it on video. I had a GoPro on the roof of my van, and we have this whole thing on video. So we recorded it, and then I put it on Instagram as a kind of we're alive, so I won't tell you what I said to them because I'm a gentleman.
A-B-C-D-E-F-F.
Right? Yeah, exactly right.
You.
Right? Don't try and kill me, jerks, because I will film it and it'll be bad for everybody and you're just going to be embarrassed. So it's one of the things I really love about Dynamo is that for 25 years, I couldn't tell anybody about anything I did. And I take those secrets to the grave, but,
so
but nothing classified. So I can show everybody everything now. So I challenge
what you did before, like what agencies you worked for, or kind of I know you can't tell all the details, but what did you do before that gave you this kind of experience?
I was an intelligence officer. I was an intelligence officer from the special operations community, and also worked for national level intelligence agencies.
Okay,
so
this is an agency that works between the military branches, I guess, to assist them in the intelligence they needed to do their missions.
Both, all kinds of. I've worked all over the place. I've worked some places I really can't talk about and I don't like to talk about. But I worked for DITRA for a long time, the Defense Threat Reduction Agency. No one ever heard of it. They're one of the best kept secrets. Their specialty is weapons of mass destruction, nuclear weapons, biological weapons, chemical weapons, and that's all they did. And I was an intelligence officer working for them for a long time. And I spent
all working for the U.S. government.
Yes, I've only worked for the U.S. government. I won't work for another foreign government. No way.
Okay,
I'm a patriot.
And then you said you got the IRS.
The IRS probably wouldn't hire me. I'm a little too rebellious. I have this whole thing called patriotism. They don't like me.
so you retire. You're sitting in your living room in Tampa.
Yeah,
you come up with this idea on your own, or
What happened is I was getting, like many veterans, I'm getting calls from Afghanistan. Help me. It's really terrible. I'm watching it on TV. It's clearly not going well. I've done a lot of work in personnel recovery, which is a nice way of saying evacuations and rescues and hostage rescues. Right. So I know what right looks like. This is clearly not what right looks like. And at the time, media was drawing a parallel between the evacuation of Afghanistan and the fall of Saigon in Vietnam, which, if you know about history, makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. There's not a single parallel other than an embassy and a helicopter. Right. The situation on the ground was comparing the two is fundamentally different as a student of history. So I was kind of watching it going like, well, what do I do? I mean, it's, I'll donate money or hell, I don't know. I felt
Right.
sad. I was angry and pride. And one of my interpreters were killed early on. So, I mean, I have a very deep connection to this thing, and I'm a 9/11 first responder and worked the invasion of Afghanistan. So this is the culmination of 20 years of stuff. Lots of Christmases. I've buried a lot of friends in Afghanistan. This is a pretty terrible experience, right? And then, like we all saw, I saw the C-17 taking off, and I saw Afghans, innocent civilians, falling from the plane. And right around then is when I blew a gasket, because the last time I saw that was on the morning of 9/11, when people were falling to their deaths as a result of the same people. So how do you explain to me August 2021, it was August 18th, not even a month away from the 20th anniversary of 9/11, not 3 weeks shy. I was working on my keynote speech for the 9/11 Museum, is what I was working on. So I'm working on my keynote speech for the 20th anniversary. The Taliban are back in charge, and innocent people are falling to their deaths. The wrong answer. The
Right.
wrong answer. Way wrong answer. Way wrong. Way wrong. And when in the military, when we say don't leave a man behind, it's not a metaphor. It's not a poetic, be all that you can be kind of.
It's got to be a male species. It is a human being that is that's an American citizen.
It's a very, very, very real thing, to the extent that if you leave one of your people behind, especially in the special operations world, that is a one-way ticket to be kicked out. That's how you get ostracized.
Right,
it's
exactly.
a very real thing for us. So I call up a couple of friends and I say, this is what we're going to do. I got a crazy idea. And they go, what? And I go, we're going to pack our stuff. We're going to deploy forward. The whole world is looking at Kabul at that moment. We're going to go to Mazar in the north. I'm friends with the warlords up there. I have a lot of contacts in the north. That's how we invaded Afghanistan. That's how we're going to leave Afghanistan. To the west is Iran. To the east is Pakistan. Generally speaking, not a good place for Americans to go, generally speaking, right? Yeah. But Uzbekistan and Tajikistan is where the alliance is for the resistance. That's where all the key leaders of the resistance are. Ahmed Shah Massoud's son is a Tajik. General Dostum is an Uzbek. We've got game here. Let's pack our stuff and let's go break some China and let's go rescue people.
Break some China.
It's literally what I said, which
you're so lighthearted about it. You're so lighthearted about it. You're like, yeah, let's go. We're going to have some fun with this.
I had one of the best bosses I ever had, who's a very senior officer who's still in the special operations world. He would task me to go do things, and I'm kind of notorious for not breaking the rules, but doing what needs to be done. And he would say, Brian, it's okay if you break it. He would say, Brian, it's okay if you break a window. That's okay. Just don't burn the house down, right? and that's kind of how my career has been. Of all the ribbons I have, I don't have the good conduct medal.
So you gather this group up and you're going to go to Afghanistan and rescue some people. Was that your first mission with your business?
Yeah. Yep. Well, we signed our articles. We did our articles of incorporation from the plane, flying to Tashkent, Uzbekistan, on the plane. And the idea the way I sold my friends was I need to be back for the 20th anniversary of 9/11. This whole trip is going to be 3 weeks. It's one last blast. We'll get the band back together. One last trip, right? We'll go over. We're not government. There's no one to yell at us. The embassy's going to go. They've already said that the embassy, that U.S. troops are, the State Department and the president got on TV and said troops will be out by August 30th. So we have an established timeline. Right. We have an established need. We have an established requirement. We have a familiar area of operations, and we already have a network in place. How hard could it be? Pretty hard.
Or was a hard part that you have to identify people that were there that needed rescue? I mean, did you know of people? Like people coming forward. My brother-in-law was there. When the planes left, my American brother got stuck there. I mean, I did an interview with an interpreter who was in hiding and did a Skype call with me while he was in hiding. So either way, how do you find these people? How did you get to know what to go for?
So, when people are desperate, it's amazing how quick, it's like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. It's amazing how quick people come together. And what had happened is a lot of veteran groups spawned out of this thing, all kinds of stuff. So we all kind of started working together. And it's one of the things that I really love about Dynamo. Fast forward now almost 2 years later, I have on my team, I have MAGA hat wearing, fanatical, unhealthy. I mean, so far right, unhealthy right?
Okay.
Like, let's give bazookas to 5-year-olds, which I disagree with, right? I mean, unhealthy.
Right.
Working side by side with people who have Hillary Clinton for president bumper stickers. That is what America's all about.
On your team.
Yep. On my team.
I love this. I talk about this all the time. That when we work together and we talk to each other, we find that we've got more in common with each other than we realize. And it's regardless of who you vote for, when you just talk with somebody and work with somebody, you find that space that you could exist together. And we've lost that in America. And it's something that you're doing in your space.
So, and that's what I'd say is we haven't lost it in America. It's just kind of hard to find a little bit, but I deal with it every single day. On my crew, on my team, I have Navy SEALs. I've got gay folks, gay men, gay women. I've got short, tall, fat, skinny. I've got soccer moms, Pilates instructors, Purple Heart recipients. Our collective body count between my whole crew is like 10,000 people of bad guys that we've killed over time, all in. I've got hardcore right, hardcore left, computer nerds, NSA folks, CIA folks, Green Berets, all kinds of people. And we're all the same. It's the best part of America. It really is. We talk about American values all the time. I would argue Project Dynamo is American values. We are. I have in the closet gay people working who are Republicans, by the way.
Log cabin Republicans.
Right. I have in the closet gay folks who are Republicans working side by side with people who are personally anti-LGBTQ, whatever, but for this purpose to rescue Americans as patriots, none of that crap matters. None of it.
This is kind of like when 9/11 happened. When 9/11 happened, everybody comes together. Everybody's flying the flag. Everybody's,
right.
Everybody's coming together, who you voted for.
I'm so happy you brought that up, right? Because so few people were there. I was there. New Yorkers are known for being, how do I say, jerks, right? We're not really known for being warm and fuzzy and touchy-feely and hospitable.
You're not from there, are you? Are you from New York?
I am. I'm from New York City originally.
Okay.
So I'm a New Yorker. I'm a Mets fan, a real Mets fan. I'm a Mookie Wilson, Darryl Strawberry, Gary Carter Mets fan. I'm a proud New Yorker. I kept my New York cell phone number still. I still have it, right?
Right.
And it is always going to be home, even though I don't live there anymore. I know the cracks in the sidewalk, right?
Right.
On the morning of 9/11, downtown New York, where people would just as happy push you on the subway tracks if you were walking too slow. New Yorkers are known for being so aggressive and almost nasty. I hate going back to New York because I realize, like, ugh, right? The towers come down. The original first responders, half the fire department was buried in the rubble. The original people that dug were civilians. And they didn't know each other. And they didn't care about each other either. The original first responders that worked Bucket Brigade, I was there and saw it with my own eyes. The fire department was decimated. 343 firemen dead, thousands hurt.
Right.
Thousands hurt, right? A 22-acre disaster zone that you can see from outer space. The original bulk of the first responders, until all the real ones showed up for the first day and change, were just New Yorkers that were just trying to help.
Right.
They didn't know. They're not trained, but they saw, oh my God, my people are suffering. My city is attacked. My country is attacked. And they did what they could. Did they save the day? I don't know if they saved the day, but they did the best that they possibly could. I take that as a 9/11 first responder and I bring that lesson to Dynamo overseas. We've rescued over 6,000 people in like 700 days. 68 American babies under the age of a month old.
So
Are we the
I'm gonna have you tell some of these stories here. Coming, our remaining time. But I'm glad that you're hanging with me for a long time because I got to tell you, your organization, is such a remarkable, inspiring organization where you're stepping up. It's like you're stepping up to the plate where our government doesn't want to go further. You're
correct?
you're doing things that our government won't do because of political reasons. And I don't want to bring up Benghazi, but I do want to bring up Benghazi because Benghazi is probably a prime example where we hear the narratives and whatever the true story is, but I think most people believe that the people in Benghazi were abandoned there, and everybody knows the story that there were troops that could have gotten them out, and our government abandoned them for political reasons. And you put politics aside, you put the narratives aside. So when our government is today, as we speak, operating in a narrative-driven political world, and they do things according to whatever the hot narrative is or the hot ideological game is at that point, you go beyond that and you take a team with you that lives in those narratives on a daily basis, but puts them aside to do the right thing for our country and for other Americans. And that's why I wanted to get you on. You have such an inspiring story, and I can't wait to share more of this.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Is I don't. You'll never hear me. We do a lot of media and stuff to raise money. We're donor funded. If whoever's listening, give $1, please, please, please. We have hundreds of people that we're still trying to get out of Sudan, still things in Ukraine, and I'm going to Afghanistan in a week or two because we got people still stuck there 2 years later, and we need
American
help
citizens.
financially. Yeah,
How
yeah.
they've been surviving all these years, all this last couple of years.
Gary, a lot of them threw their documents away because they don't want to get caught by the Taliban. So they threw their green cards away or their passports away or what have you. And there's no embassy. So how do you fix that problem? Yeah, it's really terrible. So you'll never hear of all the media I do and all this stuff. You'll never hear me say a bad word about the president or the country. Any president,
Right.
current, past, coming, whatever, ever. Because number one, to me, that feeds Russian propaganda a little bit. But more importantly, I'm a patriot. Our system of government puts the president in, whether I like him or not. He's my president. When I met President Obama, I didn't vote for Barack Obama, for President Obama. I didn't vote for him, right? I didn't vote for him. When I met him in Dover Air Force Base for the first time after a bunch of my friends were killed in many years ago, in 2011.
Where were they killed?
Afghanistan.
Okay.
So a bunch of my friends get killed in Afghanistan, August 2011. And through this whole crazy set of circumstances, I meet the president. When I first meet the president, President Obama, right? He's the president of the United States, who I didn't vote for. And from a foreign policy perspective, I have a lot of strong opinions on President Obama's foreign policies, right?
Right.
I'm part of the executive branch. When I met him, I saluted him. And I meant it. He's my president. My system of government. If I don't like it, I can move to Guatemala if I want. I'm an American. Our system of government puts people in charge, and that's the way it is. From a Dynamo perspective, I could care less who's president. I don't care. What I care about are my people that have a passport that looks just like mine stuck. That's what I care about. Doesn't matter if my sister could be the president of the United States. Honestly, I don't care.
Right.
People will ask me, why am I pro-Ukraine? I'm not pro-Ukraine. I'm anti-Russia. I have no Ukrainian family or anything. I could care less about Ukraine, honestly. They're fighting Russia. They deserve our help and a lot of other things. But I'm anti-Russian. But more importantly, I am pro-American. And you don't get to hurt my people while I have blood in my veins and get away with it.
So there's
No.
Americans that are in Ukraine that need rescue. Is that you're saying?
We've done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. We've taken Americans that were arrested by the Russians, interrogated, tortured, and broken them out of captivity. True story.
How'd you get them out?
The Russians call me Volshebnik, which means the wizard, like the magician.
Okay.
True story. We actually just had the anniversary of one. If for anyone's listening, you should go onto our social media stuff or just Google Detroit Lions, Project Dynamo Detroit Lions. One of the coolest things I ever did in my life. This poor kid, Eddie, he's from Detroit, Michigan, or Lansing, Michigan, marries a Ukrainian girl living in Ukraine as like an expat. And asked the war is starting, asked the State Department for help. They've already gone. They left 6 weeks before the war started, right? Ran away. They've got no money. He's 26 years old or so. His wife is like 4'6". She looks like she's 15. She's this little tiny Ukrainian girl. Also has a green card, right? Because they're married. He's an American. They got married there, but whatever. And the Russians come in, and because he's an American, they promptly arrest him as a spy. He gets charged with 11 counts of espionage. They beat him to death, mock executions, torture him, beat him. Every day they put him on his knees and fire a bullet past his ear. Not click, bang.
Wow.
Right? He's the first American victim of war crimes alive since World War II. An American citizen born in Michigan.
Okay.
Funny how that's not all over TV.
Yeah, I've never heard this story.
Right?
I haven't heard this story.
It was in media for about a minute and a half, and that's it. So if you Google Project Dynamo and Detroit Lions, you can read all about it. Okay. What happened is I was negotiating for 37 days, trying to get him out because a negotiation is so much better. It's more amicable, safer, better. Right. We got proof of life. There's this great picture of him holding it. It's my favorite picture of all of our stuff, of him holding up a proof of life sign. We have an agreement April 18th. And for a lot of reasons, we can't move the needle.
This past April 18th?
A year ago.
Okay.
A year ago. Yeah. For a lot of reasons, the people that were holding him wouldn't let him go. Even though their higher leadership said, let him go, and that he's definitely not a spy, they still won't let him go. We couldn't understand why. And we're trying and trying. And for 37 days, we're just trying and trying and talking and trying and trying and trying. And it just can't happen. I'm never more than 30 minutes away from him by car, getting bombed every night in Kryvyi and Zaporizhia, Ukraine, doing operations.
You're over there negotiating.
Yeah. I mean, no kidding. Where I'm staying is shaking every night from artillery and stuff. It's crazy. The windows are getting blown out, all kinds of crazy stuff. And we can't figure out why they just won't put him in a car and drive him to me. I'm literally right down the street. We can't figure it out. So while we're negotiating and trying, at the same time, unbeknownst to the bad guys, I was planning for a unilateral operation, which is a fancy way of saying, go take him from them.
Okay.
Right? So there's the give him to me way, and then there's the screw you, I'm taking him way.
I'm coming there to break the china.
Right. Breaking the china. Right. Break the window, but don't burn the house down.
Right.
For the admiral who's listening, I can't say his name because he's still on active duty, but he knows who he is. So anyway, on Victory Day, as Victory Day, which just happened, this is a year ago now, last Victory Day in Ukraine. This is now only a few months after the war started. The war started February 24th. This is now May 9th. On Victory Day in Russia is like Veterans Day, Memorial Day, and the 4th of July all wrapped into one, right? It's the victory in Europe of World War II Day. Okay. The imagery that you see of all the troops marching and the flyovers, that's Victory Day. It's a huge deal.
Okay.
In Ukraine, intelligence came out every year for Victory Day in Russia, in Moscow. They do a big flyover with all the different bombers and helicopters and all the different stuff. Intelligence came out that they were going to cancel the air show In Ukraine, that was assessed to mean that all the bombers that were doing the air show are going to divert and come to Ukraine and flatten the whole country. Vladimir Putin's going to declare formal war, which still hasn't happened yet, by the way. That was a year ago still, right? And Victory Day is going to be this holy cow monumental thing. And I said, you're full of baloney. I didn't buy it. So as Vladimir Putin stepped up to the microphone, literally went like this, we made our move and we stole the American, his wife, and her mother, all three of them, right from under their noses. Now, this is a guy who is incarcerated for espionage.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine, in the Washington, the New York field office of the FBI, if they had a Russian spy in custody and it's July 4th, and then an FBI agent goes to bring him a cup of coffee, and he goes and the jail cell was empty.
How did you get into the jail cell? How did you get into all this? How did you do this? Can you share that story?
Can you keep a secret, William? So can I.
Oh, I thought you were okay.
No, I mean, just using a lot of tradecraft and a lot of work. We spent a lot of time
on that team.
In the end.
On your team when you went in there to get him.
I had one driver, 3 security guys, and myself.
Okay.
That's it.
So basically 5 of you go in there and get him out of his jail cell, his mom, his wife.
It's a very to explain it. I actually had to explain this. I tried explaining this we did a recording thing where for our own stuff, for our own posterity. And I think we got like 7 hours of recording because it's so complicated. It's so hard to explain. But bottom line is, we get him out. The bottom line is this, is we get him out of detention. The Russian negotiators call the day after Victory Day. And they say to me, it was one of the greatest moments of my life. The Russian investigators call, and we had taken a break from negotiations because of the holiday, right? It's like Christmas, right? They call and they say, okay. And they call me Boris. They say, okay, Boris, we're very close. We're very close. I feel good now. And I say, the case is closed. And we have this whole thing recorded. It's so funny. I'm like holding a phone like this on WhatsApp, and there's a camera. One of our guys is recording because I knew it was going to happen, right? And I'm playing to the camera a little bit. I'm a little bit of a ham, right? Yeah. So I play to the camera, and I say, yeah, the case is closed. And they go, what do we do with Kirillo, the kid? And I go, I already have him. And the Russian says, yeah. But what do we do with Kirillo? And I go, I understand. The case is closed. I already have him. He goes, I understand. But what do we do with Kirillo? And I go, listen to what I'm saying. I already have him. Just listen. Stop talking. Listen. And he goes, look. He goes, Boris, you've been an honorable man. Now is not the time. We have this all recorded. It's so funny. He says, now is not the time to play games. You've been honorable. You've been genuine. We're so close. This is not the time to be disingenuous and play stupid games.
Right.
It's not the time. And I go, look, you know what I look like because I know you know I'm on TV and all this other good stuff. And I know you guys are following me around and all these other things. I know you know what I look like. And the guy says, yeah. And I go, and you know what he looks like because you're the one that sent me his proof of life picture. So you know what he looks like. He goes, da. Yes. And I go, and you know and I know that I've never met him before, right? He goes, of course not. I go, hold on 1 second. And I take my phone out like this, and I bring him over, and I take a selfie. And I send it to the on WhatsApp. And I'm like this. I go, open your WhatsApp. And I'm looking at the camera, and I go to our camera, and I go, right? Because it's so funny. Because I know what's coming. I know they don't know. So he says, oh my God. And I go, yeah, we're already in Poland. We're halfway to Warsaw. I'll call you next week. We have other things to talk about. Now, really, we were actually in Ukraine. So go. True story. All recorded, all documented. It's really funny.
So it's already. If I can see this on your recordings, but so do you think the Russian was trying to?
He didn't know.
He didn't even know. So how did he not know? I mean, he didn't even know that he didn't even visit the guy
because he's sitting in Moscow, and the kid was somewhere else.
Okay, I got.
Imagine, right? You're the Russian bad guy colonel who's holding him. You go to bring him coffee. You think you're calling Moscow to say that you lost the only American spy in the entire province that he's in? That is a great way to be killed, actually.
I want to be so alive.
How do I know? They killed him. That's how I know.
This is similar, and I'm gonna go to the next story quick that I know about. You saved 2 American babies in Russia.
Yeah.
Can you explain that real quick?
Also a good classic story. So baby Benjamin and baby Elizabeth were born to their family. Their mother and father are Americans from Texas. The family was trying to have children. They couldn't. They tried IVF. It didn't work. They tried rounds and rounds of IVF and fertility stuff. It didn't work. I think they did an egg donor and a sperm donor. That didn't really work. Surrogate pregnancy is a cottage industry in Ukraine. It's very legal, and it's actually, I didn't know anything about it before Project Dynamo, but it's actually fascinating. They take a woman's sperm and a man's sperm and a woman's egg, make an embryo, and they put it inside of a Ukrainian woman, and she's paid. And she's basically the baby oven. Her job is to carry the baby, right?
Right.
Very often, there's twins. Very often. We've done 68 of these cases. Yeah. So we are like the patron saints of the surrogate pregnancy.
Yeah.
There's a Facebook page called Uncle Brian's Babies. That's all about babies that we rescued.
68 sets of twins?
68. Some of them are twins. Some of them are singles. All kinds of stuff.
You've saved 68 cases of babies.
Yeah. And the women, the surrogates that tend to do this service, tend to be from the lower end of the socioeconomic spectrum. That's why they're doing it, because being pregnant is terrible. Being pregnant with somebody else's kid is worse. And their job is literally just to be the oven. Genetically, the baby by DNA matches the parents. It's their sperm and egg. So they're literally just a baby oven. So this family is one of these cases where it's the woman, the mother's egg from Texas and the husband's sperm from Texas. And they tried surrogate previously that failed. And you need to understand that people that are electing to do surrogate pregnancy, it's like their last resort before adoption. I mean, this is it. So they did one last Hail Mary pass, and they told their doctor, let's put 2 embryos in there. Whatever happens, happens. And God has a funny sense of humor sometimes, and it took. So the woman, the Ukrainian, is pregnant with a set of American twins in her belly. And she's like super pregnant. She's like 12 months pregnant. She's huge, right? She's already a big girl, and being stuck with twins who were big babies anyway is kind of funny. So she is pregnant, getting ready to give birth. She's beyond the front lines. So between her and Poland is this thing called artillery, and that's dangerous.
Right. And
I'll tell you, every surrogate mother I've met really takes a lot of pride and actually cares. Every single one. Which I guess I was kind of surprised by that. I guess I would have thought, like, I don't know, it's not my kid. What do I care? They all take it very seriously. It's really wonderful.
It's probably a combination of the maternal instinct is magnified by the money they're getting.
It's both. You know what I mean? Like, it's right. So anyway, so she doesn't know what to do. She flees. The surrogate mother goes south instead of going west through the front lines, worrying about being killed with American babies in her belly. She goes south into Crimea, which is Russia. She goes into Crimea, gets put into a filtration camp, which is like a concentration camp, but not quite, but almost. She's so pregnant, they kick her out of that. and she goes north then in through Russia into St. Petersburg, into Russia proper. She goes into a Russian hospital.
She's just on a train. She's getting a car ride in the
We have
car.
no idea. We don't
Okay.
even know. We don't even know how she got there. So she makes her way to St. Petersburg, Russia. Surrogacy is illegal in Russia, number one, and she's a Ukrainian in Russia, which goes over not too well, right? She gives birth to 2 American babies, a little boy and a little girl, on September 5th. And as soon as she gives birth, disappears. We don't know if she was arrested. We don't know if she was killed. We don't know if she ran for safety. We don't know much. But what we know is 2 genetically American babies are now in a Russian state-run maternity hospital.
How'd y'all know they were there?
We had connections. So we found out through the family. The surrogate was in touch with the family a little bit, and they were able to understand that. So they gave birth. So she gives birth September 5th. So now you have a little boy and a little girl with a Russian birth certificate with a Ukrainian mother's name on it. How does that start?
Right, exactly.
And now there's no mommy. So the 2 babies on September 9th, they were born on September 5th. September 9th are moved to a Russian state-run orphanage. Russia law says that if you are an orphan, which they are, they're technically orphans.
Right.
If you're an orphan at a Russian state-run facility, by law, you can only be orphaned out or adopted out to a Russian citizen. So if you're the American family, you're looking at this saying, I can't even adopt my own kids.
Right.
That's how the story starts.
And then,
CIA, State Department, U.S. Embassy Moscow, U.S. Embassy Tallinn, Estonia, Washington, D.C., the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, the Fraternal Order of the Police, whoever, everybody and their mother is engaged in this case. And for 90 days, they try and go nowhere. The relationship between the State Department, for no fault of their own, they're really trying really hard. They're really trying. But the relationship between Russia and us is not exactly the best. Right?
Yeah.
And nobody wants to touch this thing because it's very, very, very complicated, right? How do you prove, you have a mommy and a daddy saying these are my kids, but how do you prove it? Like, how do you do that? That falls in the too hard bucket, right? There's no documents suggesting this whatsoever. There's no witness to say, yep, I gave birth. These are your things. And this is me because the mommy's gone. So that's how this whole thing starts. It's very, very, very complicated. So for 90 days, the U.S. government tries and tries and tries. And to their credit, try really, 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 really hard. Really hard. There was a diplomatic officer, an American diplomat, who worked at the U.S. Embassy in Tallinn, Estonia. The family flew to Estonia because that's the closest NATO country to St. Petersburg, Russia, right? It's a border state.
Right.
So the family's in Estonia, in Tallinn, and they're working with the embassy there, help me, and they're trying hard, help me, and this is not working. This diplomatic officer takes them out for coffee and says, look, the diplomatic officer happened to have had her son via surrogacy and was sympathetic to their cause. Like, really, she was, I'm like one of you kind of thing. She says, look, we're trying, but we're nowhere. We are nowhere with this. They're not even answering our emails. That we're nowhere. We don't have the buffalo poop on a nickel. We're trying. It's not working. Your kids are going to college in Russia. The mother cries. The father cries. She says, I saw this guy on TV and I've read a lot about him. You should call Project Dynamo. They're not government, but if anyone can help, they'll try.
Right.
And that's how we got the call. That was November. That was 15 days before Thanksgiving, whatever that is, the 10th or whatever. We surge forward. We leave Ukraine, go all the way to Estonia, the land that God forgot. Meet with the family, get a real understanding of what's going on. They call us, they tell us what's going on. They kind of leave out the part that the babies are in St. Petersburg. We figured that out really easy. where we engage with some of our diplomatic channels and we say what's going on, and they say we're trying really hard, but it's just not working. We talk to different folks in Moscow, and they're like, yeah, we just there's not enough pieces there to put the thing together. And we say, okay, well, do you think that they're Americans or not? Because I got a mommy and a daddy that says yes. But like, kind of, what do you guys think? They're like, well, we don't know, but we think so. So I go, okay. So let's say, for argument's sake, they are Americans, because it sounds like they are, right? Now, you got to remember, these in Russia, at a Russian state-run orphanage, not unlike an American state-run orphanage, you have drug babies and rape babies and incest babies and all kinds of other dogs and cats. And, not their fault per se, but these are grade A, genetically engineered American babies.
Right. Sperm,
these are,
egg.
I mean, scientifically engineered. These are creme de la creme marvels of science.
The oven going on.
Right? So if you're a Russian high net worth individual and you need babies because you're going to adopt babies because you're going to, these are the ones that you want. So these babies are on a clock, right? They were born September 5th. This is now November, and the sharks are circling, because the job of an orphanage is to get rid of babies. They're not trying to keep them there in perpetuity. Right. They're not marketing them, but kind of sort of marketing them a little bit, right? So we search forward, we get some data, and we throw a couple of baseballs through some windows, and we make sure not to burn the house down. Very important. And we start to become savants in Russian baby law, right?
Okay.
I won't break laws. I'll toe the line real quick. I'll get really up close to it. Yeah. Really up close, right? Really up close. But it's kind of like, I'm not lost. I just don't know where I am. It's kind of how you explain things, right?
Okay.
So we set conditions to do this operation that the U.S. government has been trying for 90 days. 90 days. We planned for 11. The Monday before Thanksgiving, the Sunday before Thanksgiving, and I'm with the family. We're all living in the same place now. Now we're all one big happy family. I'm a very superstitious man. I won't buy tickets. I don't buy return tickets. I only buy one-way tickets. Dynamo has a 100% success rate. 100%. I don't come home until they come home. And if that means I gotta live in Estonia for 5 months, then damn it, that's what I will do. Okay. And we take it very, very, very. So I don't buy tickets. I don't buy return tickets. So I tell the family, I go, look, you need to buy 4 tickets. It's Thanksgiving week. It's of all the weeks to travel, this is the worst week in America. You will be celebrating Thanksgiving as a family. I will be home with my family for Thanksgiving. And you will have your kids. Don't wait. Buy tickets now, because they're hard to get from Tallinn, Estonia to Texas. And the father, says, Brian, I really appreciate you. I appreciate your passion. I love your energy. And he says, I don't mean to placate you or even patronize you at all. He says, but the whole U.S. government has been trying to do this. I get that you're going to try, but I've also prepared that this is not going to work. And I tell him, I go, remember, I told you so. Because I'm telling you, I will be in America for Thanksgiving. I'm telling you. You will have 2 babies for Thanksgiving. I'm telling you. Buy tickets. And he says, yeah. It kind of placates me a little bit, whatever. We initiated operations at 01:30 on Tuesday morning before Thanksgiving. 13 hours later, they had babies in their arms.
The day before Thanksgiving.
The Tuesday before Thanksgiving. Enough time to get home. Guess what? They didn't buy tickets and couldn't get tickets home. So they celebrated Thanksgiving as a family in Estonia. Joke's on them.
Did you look at him and go,
I told you so. I told you so. So it was one of those from a history perspective. That is the first time, and the Russian government didn't want to give these babies up. It's actually against the law for them to give them up. Russian law says they have to be adopted out to Russian citizens, right? Russian law. It's the first time Americans that were being held by the Russian government where they were taken, not negotiated. Brittany Griner, Gary Powers.
What about the guy in the Ukraine now?
I didn't negotiate him out.
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh,
I took him.
Okay.
I took him. I tried negotiating. It didn't work. Right.
What I'm saying is that these babies are basically being held hostage.
Correct. And inside Russian territory, Dynamo conducted a unilateral operation under their noses and got these babies safely to a NATO country, to their family. And they are in Texas as we speak.
Do you ever keep in touch with these people?
All of them. They text me all the time. It's really.
Oh, really?
All the time. Yeah.
So now, are you able, if let's say if you get something on your radar, you're somebody comes to you and says, I've got I have a relative, whatever, and you don't have the money in the bank. How do you just say we're borrowing it, or do you call the donors? How do you do that? Because I think this is something that's very
this is my problem. Is right now we're running on fumes financially, and I'll give you a great example. I have 360 Americans, citizens, sitting in Sudan right now, and I can't afford the airplane.
So, are these people that were born in America?
Yeah, their passport looks just like yours. There's a whole family from Seattle, another family from San Francisco, another family from New York, another family from Denver, Colorado.
What were they doing in Sudan? From all over the world.
All kinds of stuff. We had on our first flight that we did. We just did an aircraft with 86 people. 86 people. One was went to Sudan to do cellular communications stuff. He was building cell phone towers. Another guy was there doing water purification stuff. And I mean, there's all kinds of. We had 2 lawyers, a couple of accountants, a PhD, 2 PhDs on our last aircraft. So a lot of them are Sudanese Americans, but again, this is a narrative thing. Media will say, well, they're Sudanese Americans or they're dual citizens. Where's that written? They're Americans. They're Americans. That's it. You get 20 passports.
They might be a little bit more, melanin different than us. They're Americans. And the only reason I'm bringing that up is for this next question is they have a better chance of survival because maybe they look more like people from Sudan, or they can speak the language. Is that what gives them half a shot, to be able to survive it, or
until they get to an RSF checkpoint and show that American passport, and then they get beaten and tortured. So that's cool.
No, that's my point. Because they can travel and assimilate, but once they get checked, they get taken out.
Correct. It's a active civil war.
So how do you find these people? I mean, how is it?
They find us. So if you go to projectdynamo.org where you can donate, also you'll see a Sudan evacuation button, and we get hundreds of entries a day. Hundreds. Our database now is 30,000 people.
There's 30,000 people in Sudan that's stuck in Sudan.
But most of those are not Americans, but I mean they're the cousin of, the brother of, the sister of.
So do you have a similar thing for other people in other parts of the world?
Afghanistan, Ukraine, and Sudan. And coming soon to a theater near you, the way things are looking, China and Taiwan.
Really? Well, so you think we have a big problem there too?
Well, I don't think so. I know so, right? I mean, President Xi campaigned on the issue of reunification, which is a nice way of saying invade Taiwan.
Right.
We can't handle Sudan, clearly.
Right. couldn't handle Afghanistan clearly.
or Ukraine clearly. If history is a lesson, Taiwan is hard. It's an island, and the Chinese military is good. So, I'm not really worried about the Sudanese Air Force, whatever that is.
Right, exactly.
That's not really a thing, right?
You walked into Russia, you know,
Right?
you walked into Ukraine and got an American out. You walked into Russia and got babies out.
Flight time from Guangzhou, China to Taipei, somebody was telling me it's like 31 minutes. They can depart from China, bomb Taiwan, and make it back on one tank of gas.
Right.
I mean, it's not that hard. So, I haven't fact checked that, but somebody told me that just the other day. So, if you say there's Americans in China, which there are many of, and you say there's Americans in Taiwan, which is a lot of, well, how are we doing that?
I wonder why they're not getting out. I wonder why, if they know it's coming, why aren't they just saying, you know what, this isn't working?
People don't believe it. People game the game. People think it'll be okay. People think, oh, I'll write it out. I mean, I deal with this all the time. We saw this in Hurricane Ian, where people didn't leave their homes in Matlacha, and we would show up. And say, okay, time to go. And they would say, well, can you come back Tuesday? Because I'm just going to air some stuff out. No, ma'am. You're 85 years old. There's no power. There's no water. Your granddaughter sent us. Yeah, well, I don't really want to go. And what do you do? I mean, people are people. So
right.
We had hundreds of those during Hurricane Ian. And again, we were there before everybody. We had boats in the water before the Coast Guard.
So I guess you have regular donors that are coming in funding some of these big projects, or you're just reliant on. I mean, I guess times hard right now. Times there's a lot of the economy is going down. Are you seeing donations going down? And the reason I'm stressing this is because I really want people to donate to you.
Yes.
Like I get zero for saying this or promoting you. And I don't want anything. And my reason for emphasizing that is because I can see how passionate you are about this. And I'm passionate about trying to help Americans, because I think in your own way, you're protecting our freedoms.
I appreciate that. And, from a donation perspective, we don't have a single corporate sponsor. So if one of your listeners has a business, and what I do is of interest. If you care about Americans, if you care about babies, we've done animals. I've done dogs, cats, chinchillas once, lemurs twice.
You rescued animals too?
Yeah. I won't leave a dog behind. I've rescued. I mean, crazy stories. But we've done animals in Ukraine. No kidding.
So a couple more quick short stories before we start tapering down a little bit. Animal stories.
So I got a few. There's two really good ones. The first one is we were in Kiev, and it was the third day of the war. I got to Ukraine about a month before the war started. I knew it was coming. No one really believed it. I knew it was going to happen. So I got there a month before and built all kinds of infrastructure. So we were ready. So we have 3 Sprinter vans in front of a hotel. Each one holds 20 people. And we're manifesting and we're doing passports. And it's always the buses kind of pull up and they are parked for just about 3 minutes. I do passport checks, make sure I have who I have, do some identity checks, talk to my team in the rear, get on the buses, and we are out of there because the Russians shoot everything that drives, especially at that time. This is early days. And 3 buses going is a good target for Russian aircraft. So we have this woman who is manifested, and she gets on bus number 1. She gets on the bus, and she comes off the bus. And when this is happening, it's a 3-ring circus. It's very, very, very quick. I'm extremely busy. I'm on the radio. I got 3 phones. It's a lot of organized chaos, and it's go, 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 go. We do not have time. It looks like a bank robbery is what it looks like, right?
Right.
I'm on a clock. So she gets on the bus and comes off the bus, and she says, there's a dog on the bus. And I said, yes. And his name was Archie. He's a big, huge, giant Labrador. Huge, like 150 pounds. Big, fat.
With you?
Right? And she says, I'm allergic to dogs. Okay, no problem. Get on bus number 2. It'll be okay. She says, no, 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 get rid of the dog. And I said, I'm not getting rid of the dog. This family has lost everything. I'm not going to take their dog away also. Right on bus number 2, it'll be okay. And she kind of harumphs a little bit. And you could tell she was a very affluent woman who's kind of spoiled and, annoying. So she gets on bus number 2, comes right off. And I'm on literally talking on 2 phones like this. This is what it looks like. Right.
I mean, but she's not an American, but you're still rescuing her.
She's a green card holder. She's a green card
holder. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So, which is fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
That's okay. And she says, there's a cat on the bus. And I go, okay, get on bus number 3, lady. I got stuff to do. You've already exceeded your quota of communication. Get on bus number 3. Stop talking. We got to go. She goes on the bus number 3, comes right up the bus. She says, there's a dog on that one also. And I go, I'm very sorry. She says, I have allergies. I go, you have a choice. You can take some Claritin and enjoy the dog or the cat. I don't really care. Or you can stay here and enjoy Russian artillery and missiles. These buses are leaving in 30 seconds. You have a choice. Be on the bus or don't. And she says, you would leave me for a dog? And the family of Archie is in the front seat. And they're scared to death that I'm going to take their dog off because they know what's going on.
Right.
They're scared to death. So they're looking out the window like this, like with desperation in their eyes, right? And I'm looking at Archie, and I am a huge animal lover. I have a big, giant, fat dog at home, and he's my pride and joy. And I'm looking at Archie, and I'm looking at the daughter, and she's this young girl, and she's crying, and the dog is like, please don't leave me, please don't leave me. Right. And I tell the lady, 30 seconds. You can stay, or you can come with me. I'm leaving in 30 seconds with you or without you. Honestly, it's great if you're not on the bus because that means more leg room for me because I'm on the bus too.
Right.
And she says, you would leave me? I says, I am leaving you. This conversation is over. I'm getting on the bus. You have a choice. And she goes, okay. She got on the bus and it was okay. And we rescued Archie, the Labrador, who's huge. Rita, who is a Russian Terrier, who is also huge, and some cat. I'm not really a cat guy. I'm a dog guy. And everyone was like, I can't. They're like, you're nuts. You would. I'm like, I knew she would get on the bus. It would be okay. It'd be all right. She's not going to stay. It's fine.
What I want to point out when it comes to donations too, because I really believe in your organization, and I want to point out something you said earlier. We've been on for a while, and look. As long as you got a few more minutes, I think this is good stuff, that people need to hear about. I want to point out that you run, it sounds to me like you run a very lean operation. When you talked about $400,000 to go do a rescue mission, I can add the numbers up, what it costs a plane and charter the plane and insurance and gas and stuff like that. But you didn't mention salaries, paying people. You mentioned volunteers. You got a lot of people that volunteer. So it's not like you're getting donations just to give people jobs or have friends that like, hey, I got a buddy that needs a job. He's got an adventurous spirit. We're gonna bring him on and pay him. You're getting volunteers to do it. You've got not only such a great organization, you've got, I guess it's a spirit about you that is able to recruit people who are willing to put their lives on the line for your organization to help other Americans, to go to a foreign country and put, that they don't know, and where they don't know if they're even going to come home, and basically go into a war-torn area, war zones, to rescue somebody that they don't know, that may or may not even look like them, but are known Americans, and do it for free. Yeah. And you're out there raising money to basically fund an organization to bring volunteers on to just go save Americans and save freedom.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's true.
This is amazing.
It's again, it's It's about being an American. It used to be that if you had an American passport, it actually meant something. That's
Right.
at least right now. I just came back from the third country in 18 months with an embassy that we cut and run from. When you study military history at like the War College and stuff
Yeah.
and the intelligence world, we look at the fall of the embassy evacuation of Saigon as a milestone event, right? What led to that? What led to us lowering the flag and evacuating the embassy in Saigon has been studied and written up. There's books written about that as a major seminal moment in American geopolitical lore. We've done 3 in 18 months.
Wow.
That,
So
and
Sudan, Afghanistan, and
Ukraine.
Ukraine.
So where in every circumstance, when we started, this is what people forget. When I started Dynamo in my living room, it was about rescuing our allies. The Afghans who fought with us side by side for 20 years that we stiffed and broke our promise and left behind.
Right.
That's how it started. I never thought I'd be rescuing Americans out of Afghanistan.
Right.
It never even occurred to me.
I interviewed a guy that the one that so it was he was an interpreter in Afghanistan, and the guy that I brought in my studio with me was the American that was using him as an interpreter, and they
Right.
had a friendship. He says
Sure.
he became family to me because he saved my life many times, and he put his life on the line. Every day he was putting his life on the line for me. And so he was trying to do what he could do to get him out of the country, out of there.
And that's all. And we've done a lot of those also. But Americans first. It never occurred to me when I started Dynamo. It never even dawned on me that we'd be rescuing Americans.
As much as you knew before, as much as you and again, thank you for the extra time. I really appreciate it, because this I think is not only interesting, but this is something I think more Americans need to know what's going on.
Yeah.
That when our government has left us, because you're not the only organization like this, right? There's other organizations that are kind of maybe a little different. There's none other like you.
Nobody does it the way we do it. There's a lot of veteran rescue organizations out there, but they like coordinate. The best way to think about it is like if you call your house is on fire and you call 911 and they say, what's your name, what's your address, what's the problem, right? You talk to a dispatcher and the dispatcher types it all up and then gives it to a fireman, right? Most organizations are just dispatcher. We're both, and nobody dresses up as a dispatcher for Halloween.
Okay.
All of it. So but nobody really goes forward the way that we do. Nobody.
Because I've heard there's other agencies that do like little rescue missions for whatever, but those that one that I heard about one time sounded like it was a for hire thing that would go in for one person into safe areas. You're going in the war areas, but correct. But I think it's important that I want to shine the light on this a little bit. That you talked about the fall of Saigon, how we've done that 3 times in the last 18 months, and it not only shows a weakening America to other countries, because now other countries say America is gonna just pull out. They don't care about their own citizens, let alone their own country, because they're letting people in the southern border, by the hundreds of thousands. So why should we worry about them? But it's to send a message that the next conflict that we have, where we really need people in that country to put their lives on the line to help us, we're going to get a big flat no, or a big flat, turn the back on us, because they're going to say, hey guys, remember Afghanistan, remember Sudan, remember Ukraine, when you all left people, how can we trust that you're going to not do the same to us now?
It's a huge problem. That's one of the reasons why we do what we do. Obviously, our number one goal is to rescue Americans, of course, but somewhere in there is to project American strength overseas. If the government is struggling with doing that for whatever the reasons are, that doesn't mean that I have to stop. In fact, I answer everywhere I go, there is no US government. So there's no one even to yell at me or tell me, yes, I can, or no, I can't. So when we do things in Sudan, we had this huge problem in Sudan with a sheikh who's just a dirtbag, just a bad guy, just a
Yeah.
bad guy, and put some people in jeopardy because he's just a money greedy,
Right.
gross Sudanese sheikh, right?
Right.
Um, and put some people at risk for a buck, which made me angry. And he says, "Well, you need to understand, I'm friends with this and I'm friends with that. I'm friends with the other thing." And I said, "Well, you need to understand, I'm coming to town and I don't have any rules. I don't have a colonel to tell me no. I don't have an ambassador to
Right.
say anything, which means that I can push you in front of a bus. And honestly, there's not a single person around that can even hold me accountable,
Exactly.
frankly.
See you
So,
later.
so, and I told him, I go, look, take caution in your tone. You're a Sudanese sheikh that no one's ever heard of before. People get killed every single day. I would hate for something bad to happen to you. It'd be terrible.
Yeah.
If maybe the SEALs that came and did the evacuation out of the embassy, maybe if they came and, I don't know, shot you in the face or something, that would be too bad, wouldn't it? And he goes, well, I go, don't make me call them and say that you're holding Americans hostage because that sounds bad. The best way, we used to always joke, the best way to meet a Navy SEAL is to hijack a ship.
And that's their form of income over there.
I tell you what, I was on a SEAL team for a long time, and I don't want to be at an address where my friends show up. That's a bad day. That's a
Yeah.
be on a receiving end of us when we're angry is very, very scary and often self-correcting, So, but again, being able to project American strength to some idiot Sudanese sheikh, the idea that he'd have the audacity to even go down that road tells me that we're losing our credit and our standing in the world. Not that long ago, people would be afraid to even utter those words.
When our own government can't or won't, and you can watch the American spirit lost in the actions of when our own government, is not there for the people, when they're not there for the people in other countries, when our own government's actions show either a lack of strength or a lack of American spirit. Brian, you embody that spirit. You yourself, the American spirit that I can see in you, that comes out of you for your love of freedom and other Americans, I think is 10 times what we don't see when our own country loses the spirit. And I can't thank you enough for that.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I'm a 6 foot, I'm 6 foot tall and 200 pounds of pure American socialization. I believe red, white, and blue. And honestly, it's why we're not political. It's because I don't care. Paul Revere and George Washington and Benjamin Franklin, all the patriots that founded the country, they while they had their differences, and people forget, they argued for weeks about the Declaration of Independence, right, and they bickered and haggled and fought and political and all that stuff, but for a common goal, And
Right.
God help you if you're the British and you come and try and fight them. They're gonna open up a can of hate on you and fight and win.
Right.
We need to kind of get back to that a little bit. We do. And I have friends that are so liberal. I tell you, I talk to them and I wonder, like, how are we friends? My best friend in the whole world. My best friend in the whole world is a extremely religious. I call him pray over Chick-fil-A. He prays when he eats. He's this polished guy who is articulate and smart and extremely educated and very well read. and is a senior law enforcement guy in American law enforcement, and is a quiet, very quiet, man of few words, stoic kind of a guy. And he's my best friend in the world. I'm his best friend in the world, right? I think about this as if you met the two of us, you would never believe that we would even be in the same room together, let alone anything.
Exactly.
And he's as liberal can be. I mean, believes in things that I scratch my head like how, what planet, and we argue and we debate and all these things, right? But
Well,
we're
what's amazing is what you just now how you described him, he espouses a lot of conservative values, but yet he's very liberal, and a lot of people, and that's it's not as okay, but but that's what I tell everybody. Like, stop saying you're conservative, stop saying you're liberal, stop saying that you're this. Come together on those things that make us all fight together for the freedoms and liberties that we all enjoy in the country, that brings us all together on all the grounds that we have in common, and stop fighting with each other and fight for what helps us all out.
And I think, I've been all over the world, right? All over the world.
Right.
And, we talk about, guns in America and the Second Amendment and all that stuff. And people get crazy over that stuff. As a proud advocate of the Second Amendment and proud gun owner and, all that stuff. But when I'm overseas and Americans get a bad rap, we do. We get a bad rap. Some of it's deserved. Some of it's not deserved. People think that I'm sometimes kind of a nut job a little bit, because I'm going to places and doing crazy things or whatever. And I tell them, I go, you need to understand, this just happened to me in Africa. I go, you need to understand, I come from a country where guns are in our Constitution. Yeah. Why are you surprised that I like to fight?
Right.
I'm a patriot down to my core. And, in the Constitution, it talks about guns. We're the only country in the world that in the document, in this, the first most important thing is freedom of religion and freedom of speech. The second most important thing is I want to be able to fight, and I want to be armed when I do it. God damn it, right? When we say I can't believe we fight each other as a country, well, it's also in our DNA a little bit. The Boston Tea Party, by 2023 standards, was a terrorist event. It's in our it's in our DNA to fight, and that's okay. What's great about being an American is that you can believe what you want to believe, and I can believe what I want to believe, and we can argue about it until we're blue in the face, and we have the right to do it. Because everywhere else you do that, you get shot.
That's right.
Right? You try having a difference of opinion in Venezuela, see what happens to you.
Exactly right.
See what happens.
It won't matter if you have a Second Amendment right over there. However, the Second Amendment empowers us because our rights are endowed by our Creator. The right to self-defense is endowed by our Creator. And I don't know if you've read this book or not. There's a book called the Second Amendment Primer. And when you study it, you realize that our founding fathers talk about all the arguments that they had. They didn't just say, hey, we want to have rights to fight, or defend ourselves. What they did was they studied history and civilizations for thousands of years, and they found that the ones where they were able to defend themselves and defend each other were the ones that survived and thrived and where they had the most peace because of that right to be able to defend yourself.
People always talking about, we talk about, school shootings, very delicate topic, and active shooter stuff and everything else. And, when you do active shooter training, the thing is, run, hide, fight, right? Is what you're supposed to do. Right. And I always laugh at that. I'm like, I don't know. Where I'm from, it's fight, and fight some more. I don't know. The best way to stop a lunatic with a gun is a nice guy with a gun is the best way.
Well, Brian, you're that nice guy with a gun. Well, actually, that's something I don't know that you can talk about, because you're going to another country. You got to find a way to, I guess, to be armed or protect yourself in other countries where guns aren't allowed. But I won't ask you that question. I won't expect you to answer that question.
Well, what I'll say is that I'm still here, is what
All
I'll
right.
say.
I got you.
I'm still here and I have no holes in me. So I'm doing something right.
Brian, not only are you doing something right, you're doing something for our country and doing something and you're putting other people and other people's freedoms above your own. And I want to thank you so much for that. And I want to and I want people to really consider donating to you, but I want them to also consider, supporting your organization any way they can.
The best ways that people can help me, is if you're a business, I'm looking for corporate sponsors. Put your logos on whatever you want. I don't really care. I'll bring your logos to the war zone and say, look at, William Wallace Chevy dealership, coming to you live from Kiev,
Right.
whatever it is. But I need corporate sponsors. We have not a single one right now, and that is what I need. I need donors. Every dollar helps. If every one of your listeners, I don't know how many people are listening, but if all of your listeners gave $1, I will bring Americans home from Sudan like next week. I need help.
So this show will be on YouTube. It's going to be on Rumble. It's live right now on Facebook and Cloud Hub. I take the video and I put it on YouTube and I'll put it on Rumble, and then I take the audio off of the video and I make that a separate podcast, which is why I don't mind going over an hour and a half as the prime spot for that. And then I take all those links, YouTube, Rumble, and the podcast, and I constantly promote them on Twitter and on Instagram. So I'll be promoting this show for weeks to come, especially what you're doing.
The other thing people can do to help me out is we have Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and Twitter. I think I have a volunteer who does that for me. But like us on that, like us on all those mediums, and every time we post something, share it with everyone you know.
I love it.
Costs no money.
I'll get all those links and I'll connect all those links to you.
Perfect. If all of your listeners did that, it would create awareness. Imagine, it's 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. We are an amazing country. We put a man on the moon in a washing machine.
Right.
In the 60s.
Exactly right.
But before email, before the iPhone, before all kinds of things, we can do stuff. And if the government isn't going to do it, okay, that does not absolve the people. The Constitution, just like our passport, says we the people on it. Right. It doesn't say we the government on it. Right. It says we the people on it.
I get tired of people complaining about what our government's doing. Like when it comes to election integrity, everybody says, well, the government stole our elections, whatever. Like, you know what? Then get out there and vote. Encourage more people to vote. Get out there and canvass. Sure. Get the bad registrations off we the people don't realize how much control we have individually over our government when we do the things that we can do legally, like you're doing with going rescuing Americans. And you're a prime example of that. Brian, I'm gonna end our show, but while we give you any last words, but after I end the show, I'm going to talk to you off camera for a minute, off air for a minute. Any final words?
No, just thank you. Thank you to you. And thank you, William Wallace. I love, cool name, by the way. It's awesome.
Freedom. Yeah.
Freedom. I'm going to paint my face blue and go whoop some ass.
You can't see my kilt right now, but it's
but yeah, no, thanks for having me on. And just to whoever's listening, like us on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and all that other good stuff. And please donate. Please donate. Look at our due diligence on us. Look at our social media. You'll see my potato head with lots of people. We're very real. We're very genuine. We're very lean and mean. I mean, pretty much every penny goes to doing an op or preparing for an operation. And we have a lot of stuff on the horizon that I need to raise money for. I have current operations and future operations, and our people are stuck. And I need your help. Please help, especially businesses.
Brian, thank you so much. Everybody else, please share the podcast, share the videos, share this, and let's help this organization out. Let's help Brian bring freedom and Americans home. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, William. Appreciate it.